I was the type of student who blended into the background. I wasn't a troublemaker or a standout. I just showed up, took notes, and left. So when Professor William Harris asked to see me after class, I froze. I sat in the middle row of his literature class, always attentive but never daring to speak, unless called on. Professor Harris was known throughout the university as the no-nonsense, sharp-tongued authority of the English department. His lectures were brilliant, but he was intimidating, always demanding nothing but excellence. That day, he didn't raise his voice or seem angry. He simply looked at me as class ended and said, "Miss Lauren Carter, stay back, I need a word." As students shuffled out laughing and discussing weekend plans, I remained seated, my heart pounding, my mind raced. Had I plagiarized something without realizing it was there? An issue with my last paper when the classroom emptied. Professor Harris gathered his materials and gestured for me to follow him. We walked down the long corridor in silence, our footsteps echoing off the tile floor. My stomach churned with anxiety as we climbed the stairs to the third floor where his office was located. I'd never been up there before. His office was surprisingly cozy, lined with bookshelves, and filled with the scent of old paper and coffee. He motioned for me to sit in the chair across from his desk. Then he pulled a printed copy of my most recent essay from a folder and set it in front of him. "You wrote this," he said, tapping the top corner. I nodded, trying to read his expression. "Yes, sir." He leaned back, folding his arms. "This piece, it wasn't just good, it was different, raw, personal. You wrote about your father's death as if you were reliving it with every word." I looked down, unsure of how to respond. That essay had come from a deep place. It wasn't just a writing assignment, it had been therapy for me. My father passed away 2 years ago, and I hadn't spoken about it to anyone in a long time. Writing about it for class was a risk I took, because I had no idea what else to say. "I'm sorry if it was too much," I finally said. He shook his head. "On the contrary, it was honest, and that kind of honesty is rare." There was a long pause. The ticking of the old wall clock grew louder. "You have a voice," he said. "Not just a student voice trying to get a grade, a real voice. Have you considered writing beyond class assignments, submitting to journals, blogs, maybe even starting something of your own?" I shook my head, a little surprised. I always thought that was for people who were, special, not someone like me. He smiled slightly, a rare expression on his often stern face. "What makes someone special is when they stop waiting to be told they are and start believing themselves." That day, something shifted inside me. I walked out of his office with more than just a compliment. I left with a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in years. Over the next few weeks, Professor Harris and I met regularly, not for grades or extra credit, but because he wanted to mentor me. He gave me reading lists, suggested writing prompts, and encouraged me to submit pieces to the university's literary magazine. I still remember the first time I saw my name in print. It was a small article, just a short piece titled "The Empty Chair," about the silence my father left behind. But holding that issue in my hands felt like holding a piece of myself that I thought was lost. My classmates started noticing. Some asked me how I got published. Others began treating me like someone who actually had something to say. Months went by. I gained confidence. I started a blog sharing short stories and reflections. To my surprise, people read them. They commented, shared, and even emailed me about how my words helped them process their own losses. One message from a woman in Ohio still sticks with me. She said, "Your story reminded me that I'm not alone. Thank you for being brave." Professor Harris was always in the background, quietly cheering me on. He never asked for credit, never made it about him, but I knew I wouldn't have taken that first step without his nudge. My senior year, he nominated me for a National Young Writers Fellowship. When I got the acceptance letter, I ran to his office, holding it up like a golden ticket. He read it, smiled, and said, "Told you." That fellowship took me to New York, where I interned with a major publishing house. I met editors, attended workshops, and learned the business side of writing. It wasn't glamorous, but it was everything I needed. I kept writing, kept growing. Years later, after publishing my first collection of essays, I had dedicated the book to Professor William Harris. I mailed him a copy with a note that read, "Thank you for seeing me before I saw myself." He wrote back in his usual typed format, "Keep writing, the world needs more truth." What began as a nerve-wracking summon to his office ended up changing the course of my life. Sometimes the most unexpected conversations can ignite the spark you didn't know you were missing, and sometimes the person you fear the most turns out to be your greatest ally. So yes, the professor called me into his room that day, but what happened next changed everything